Hey, this is I Love My Job Time right here on WMFD, and we've got tons of information. You know, there are times when we have shows that are kind of entertaining and fun, but this is a program that's going to provide you with some valuable information that you really need to know. And if you're not going to use it, Debbie Mack is with us. She's an attorney at law. We've had Debbie on before, an excellent attorney. She's brought with her Brian Flick, and hello. Brian also is an attorney. And we're going to be talking about bankruptcy, foreclosures, and that's your specialty.
Yes, sir. We work on those, and along with some other things when people are finding themselves in financial distress. But we're not here just to try to get in clients. We're here trying today to educate people about what are some of the protections afforded by the law, Doug. And if you would like to talk briefly today about
Sure.
some of these student loan issues, some of the mortgage modification issues, what to do if your servicing company does not respond to you, we're hoping that people will become better educated and able to help themselves.
Okay, and those bill collectors that are hounding you and
burning up your cell phone. Yes.
Yeah, and of course, you know, I don't need to tell you this, but the audience, of course, obviously knows that student loans are big, 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 big. I mean, it's just hard to describe. But anyway, now, Brian, I understand that you met, we're talking about legally, of course, obviously, professionally, career-wise, with a gentleman by the name of Max Gardner. Tell me about that.
Well, Debbie and I met about going on a little over 3.5 years ago. We both were graduates of the Max Gardner Bankruptcy Boot Camp. Max, as we all affectionately call him, he prefers Max over anything else, is a very renowned was a renowned creditor's attorney, but he's really given his life to consumer law over the last decade and a half. What Max has done since 2005 is at least quarterly, if not a little bit more, a little bit less, held what's called bankruptcy boot camps, which teach debtors attorneys, consumer attorneys, litigation models to really advocate for their client, not necessarily on the defensive, but also look to see what we can do within the existing framework of the bankruptcy code, as well as federal regulations like the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, to use those as a means to attack the rather unscrupulous sometimes methods that creditors use to collect, and also really helping to refine people's practices. And believe it or not, try to remove some of that stigma of filing bankruptcy. And I think that that's a really important thing that Debbie and I really do, and Max has talked about as well, is that, you know, filing bankruptcy is never a good process. I think nothing that we say today should be construed that this is easy, you know, that you're going to make a lot of money, things like that.
Sure.
This is a horrible, horrible situation, and really I've always looked at it as make it as comfortable as possible, but also use the laws that are there to our advantage. I think that our society very much looks down on someone who files bankruptcy, and certainly there are some negative things, but there's a lot of positives that can come out of that as well. And I think that's what Max teaches. And one of the things that Max taught me, and really when I got out of the camp in October of 2011, I wanted to get to know everyone in Ohio who went to this. And I reached out to Debbie, and there's about 6 other graduates at that time, and said, I'd love to get together. You know, tell me what you've done with it, because Debbie was one of Max's earliest graduates back in 2006. And we've sat down either together or individually and really talked about, you know, what we do best to help our clients. And certainly with Debbie, she's a very well-rounded attorney. She has a great accounting background. You know, my background was more volume bankruptcy practice. And really one of the things Max teaches is get away from that. Help each client. And that's really all I've ever wanted to do as a lawyer. I want you as a client for life. I don't necessarily want to help you and 6 months later the phone rings and I just don't want to answer your call. Certainly there's a reason for that, but to help you. And Debbie and I have known each other 3.5 years. It's been a great relationship.
Yeah. How do I know when I need your services? How do I know I need, where am I in life when I say, you know what, I'm drowning?
Well, 70% of my current practice is composed of hardworking, typical Americans that have had medical problems. And if it's not medical problems, that's led to unemployment or underemployment. They're not able to earn what they were making. But if you can't pay your bills. If you're starting to look into payday advance loans, if you're starting to get motor title loans, if you cannot pay your student loans, you better get some help as soon as possible and look at your options, because the further down that road you get, the less possibilities that you have to pursue.
Okay, let me take a quick break. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're providing you, I'm not, but Debbie Mack is, of course, and as well as Brian Flick, both attorneys with valuable information that you need to know. We got a lot to talk about. We're coming right back. Why don't you stay with us on this one? And again, tonight you're watching I Love My Job. Brian Flick is with us, an attorney by law. Of course, obviously, Debbie Mack is with us, also an attorney. And we're talking about bankruptcy, foreclosures, those people that are hounding you about paying your bills. Let's continue on this trend of bankruptcy. How many, are there a variety of bankruptcies?
Actually, there's 6 different ones. I do 3 or 2 of them, and Brian does another one. He does, there's the walk away, which is the Chapter 7, and then there's the Chapter 13, which is the reorganization and the restructuring. Brian additionally does a Chapter 12, which is agricultural in nature.
It's an agricultural restructuring. Works very much like a Chapter 13, only there's some different rules, some advantages that are out there built into the code to really help the family farmer or fisherman. You don't get a lot of fishermen in this area in the Midwest, so we focus primarily on farming. But really that's where we both focus our practice. The other kinds of bankruptcies are really more non-traditional for non-consumers. There's a business bankruptcy in 11. It's called a Chapter 15 if you're a nation or you're an international company. And then a Chapter 9, which is if you're a municipality, most famously up in Detroit, which is going on right now.
Yeah, you're right.
Getting back to a question that you asked, you know, what kind of clients do we have? Is there a broad, and kind of more broadly, is there a broad range? The answer is yes. I mean, I think to both of us, the perfect client is someone who, as Debbie was saying, you know, comes to us when they start realizing they're having some difficulties. And maybe it's just one missed payment and you think, nothing of it.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. But when it becomes 2, 4, 6, 3 months down the road, then you're getting those collection letters or those collection calls. You know, that's really the time where I think both of us would strongly say, maybe you do need to come in. And one stigma and one thing that I always want to really, want to remove is there's nothing wrong with sitting down and having a frank discussion with somebody, especially independent, about your debts. I think that when you think you're going to see an attorney, especially one that advertises for bankruptcy, the first words out of their mouth are, oh, you need to file bankruptcy. I think one thing that Debbie and I do well, and I think a lot of attorneys do this, good ones, I will stress that, is sit down and say, okay, you're having this difficulty. Let's look at your budget. Let's look at your life. Is there something we can do but for bankruptcy? And is there really a necessity to file bankruptcy? And certainly there are. I think when you start falling behind on those debts that are your car payment, your mortgage, then it becomes more and more clear that bankruptcy may be the best option. The kind of client that we're more likely going to see are not those people. It's going to be the people who, unfortunately, their car is repossessed, or it is 2 days away from, or heaven forbid, they got a foreclosure notice, didn't know what to do. Tried to work with their servicer, and they're getting a call that they're getting a notice that the sheriff's going to sell their house on Friday. Right. And they're calling me on Monday or Tuesday saying, I have a sheriff's sale on Friday, can you help? I certainly can. Yeah. There's a lot of limited options, but usually that answer is, yeah, you're going to file bankruptcy, and then we'll figure it out. But you're saying it can be stopped? Yes.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, frequently, if, for example, the reason that you need to be filing the bankruptcy is to stop a foreclosure, if you go to someone early enough, you can do what's called a modification. A modification is when you modify the original terms of your contract. And why I've asked Brian to come and help me on some of these Richland, Ashland, Bucyrus cases is because we are seeing on a larger scale that some of the large mortgage companies, the servicing companies, are doing things that are not right. And when we had our former Attorney General Richard Codroy, go and become appointed as the very first Consumer Financial Protection Board president or person who's running it, director. He made sure that there was some safety guidelines that were in there, and that became effective January 13th of this year. And what it does is it says you can send a notice of error to your servicing company saying, wait a minute, I am current in my payments, here's the proof, please fix it. You can also send letters that are called request for information, which says, look, I want a copy of my note, I want a copy of my life loan transaction history, which means everything that's happened in my mortgage, and you know what, they have to acknowledge that within so many days, and they have to go back and to send you out the fact that they've repaired it or acknowledged it, or they have to give you something back within 30 days. So they have 5 days to acknowledge and 30 days to do it. This law is completely different than the old law that we had, which is still in effect under the Real Estate Sales Practices Act, where you send out QWR letters, which is Qualified Written Request. All that means is that there's more things that Brian and I can do to help people, and it's completely free to send these in. Anybody can send these letters in, and you can get to the bottom of your problem before it gets out of hand.
Okay, so I'm hearing you tell me, don't wait till the last minute. Get to you people early so you can figure this thing out with your client.
I mean, if there's one thing I would say put on repeat from this is say that. Come see us when it's early. You know, certainly we're there to help. Even after the fact, there may be some things, but don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait until it's too late. It's never too late to come see us, but as early in the process as possible. And, you know, we may even say we need to wait. You know, there's a reason. Let's look at it. You know, yes, you may feel things are bad, but let's look at the reality of it. And really, I think that's the most important thing when you're meeting with a client, anybody, is really getting to the reality of the situation. It's all scary. Falling behind on your bills is scary. I think one thing that a lot of my clients are taken aback with is if I do tell them, you know, you don't have to worry about that mortgage payment today. You know, you're meeting with me, we have a plan in place that may say, you don't have to make a mortgage payment for months down the road. That's a scary proposition. Or the debt collectors, you know, you're getting those letters, you're getting those calls. You know, to be able to look someone in the eye and say, you're going to file bankruptcy, when we get this filed, those calls will stop. And I will help you make sure they stop. That's a really difficult concept. Because it's not necessarily, I've stopped paying my bills and I'm getting the help. It's, you know, seeing the after, you know, did I get that help and what did it do? And I think the most powerful thing when you come in, if you need to file bankruptcy, is what's called the automatic stay, which means everything against you stops, and it has to stop. And one thing that Debbie and I do, and one of the reasons I went to boot camp, is to protect that right. That, along with what's called your discharge when you're all done with your bankruptcy, are the two most important things in the bankruptcy code, in my opinion. One says they have to stop collecting, they have to stop everything. The other says, I've fulfilled all my obligations, I don't have a responsibility on this debt.
Tonight we're talking about bankruptcy, and we're talking to attorneys. I mean, these are the career professional people that are providing you with this valuable, basically free information, and that you need to know. We're going to come back with Brian and Debbie right after this. Look who's here. Okay, we're back, and we never can thank you enough for watching, but again, we're trying to help you. We're trying to provide you with information, and I got the experts to do it tonight. Either one of you, both of you, well, obviously, one of the major issues in this country, and there's plenty of them, is student loans, student debt. Talk to me about that.
There are many people whose student loans are in default, and they're finding out that the government has the ability to garnish 15% of their gross wages, period. And then when they do start making the rounds and calling people, it takes them over 9 months to get out of default. So if they do not address their student loans immediately and get onto some type of a payment plan with them, there's absolutely nothing they can do for that 9-month period aside from, filing a bankruptcy, which would temporarily stop it. But people need to know that they have 6 months to make regular steady payments, and then they can go back to school, or they've got to make payments for 9 months before they can consolidate their loans. There's loans that Brian and I are very familiar with called the income-based consolidation loan, and there's pay-as-you-earn and a few others, but there's ones in there that look at your total household size and also what the gross income is for your household, and then they make your student loan more manageable. Some of the things that we do is we help their students go back and define their PIN number so they can go to the Department of Education website. They can actually look at all their loans, and they can find out for sure who's servicing that loan. It's right there in black and white. And it sounds like it's a rather simple process, but it's pretty daunting trying to go into the internet and to pull up these, because you're getting collection notices from one person after another, and you start making payments on one plan and then the servicing will change to someone else, and it's very difficult even for us to straighten it out sometimes because they're just on this merry-go-round.
So once again, a student out there having difficulties, can't make their payments, they've got to come to you people right away.
I think it's if they need to be proactive.
Yeah.
Coming to our office, coming to see either Debbie or I would be, the ideal, but really be proactive before you get into that actual default. I think one of the great sins of student loan lending and colleges in general is, how easy it is to get the aid, but also the counseling that's not done at the end. If I were to sit down with you and tell you, you're a typical person, in Richland County. You make $30,000 a year, you have a family of 4, but you have $40,000 in student loans. If I were to tell you there's a way to apply for the government, if these are federal loans, that you wouldn't have to pay anything for 25 years, you'd look at me and say I was crazy. But I would say, no, that's what the income contingent repayment plan that has been rolled out several years ago is all about. And really, my focus when someone comes in with student loans isn't necessarily bankruptcy, because unfortunately one of the great ills of bankruptcy that hopefully will be changed one day is you can't get rid of your student loans in bankruptcy, absent some very, very, very exigent circumstances, i.e. you are very ill. You are permanently disabled beyond the point of ever working any income. But other than that, they're going to be with you for life. So really, much like mine are, I look at it and say, how can I help someone understand what's available to them to assist them, to ease the burden? And then certainly if they are in default, then it really does become a conversation of, can we use a bankruptcy as a stopgap to get you out of that default so you're not facing that garnishment? Is there something else we can do? Get you on a payment plan to get you out of default, to consolidate. And really, student loans more than anything, it is the most confusing thing out there, probably, I would say, by far. And I think more incrementally and more serious, I will never underplay how serious this problem is. For all of us who have been through the mortgage problems over the last decade, student loans are at least 20 times that debt to consumers in America. This problem will be 20 times larger when it happens.
Whoa.
And another thing is, as bankruptcy attorneys, because we deal with debt, a lot of us saw the mortgage servicing problems, the mortgage boom, 5 years before it actually happened, because we said, wait a minute, there's all these people with all this debt and no income. Now they're having trouble. We have seen the student loan problem a decade before it even started. And this, what is going on right now, is kind of the tip of the iceberg. It's the elephant in the room. But really, education more than anything, knowledge is key with student loans.
Need to take a quick break. Once again, we're talking about student loans, what you need to know, and you're hearing it tonight from the professionals. Coming right back, right after this. Once again, Debbie Mack, Brian Click are with us, attorneys. We're talking about bankruptcies, we're talking about students' loans, and how do we get in touch with you?
Well, both of us have websites that people can access. We will be posting links to sites that reference what we've been talking about today. And so if people would like to, my website is attymack.com for Attorney Mack. And Brian's with a law firm. Would you like to give them?
Yes, I'm with the firm of Mills, Fiely, and Lucas. We're a statewide firm. Our website is www.mmfllaw.com. And we have all the information you need and definitely links on how to reach me directly as well if you have questions.
Okay, Debbie, you're on your own as an attorney.
Yes,
You
I'm
have
in the
your own
Marion
office.
1 building.
Marion 1 building. And Brian, you're with a company, a corporation.
I'm with a firm and we are statewide. I actually practice all over the state right now and primarily in the Cincinnati and Columbus area, but love coming up here. Try to stay away from Cleveland, but I'll practice up there as well.
Sure.
And our firm has been in business in this area for over 100 years as well. So
Whoa.
definitely some good roots, and we really do look forward to helping, you know.
Brian's working with me on a few of my larger cases and that are more complex, and it's a good partnership.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, again, we cannot, or you cannot emphasize enough to get to you people early in the game.
Right, or just to get the information out to their relatives who need the help.
Yes.
Just to get the information out.
Okay, now sitting down with you again, my understanding is whatever the case may be, you're going to lay out a plan for me
Correct.
as the directions to go.
Yes.
Get the collectors off my back and resolve my issues, whether it be foreclosure or not.
Correct.
Yes. There are a number of things that we can do to help you avoid a bankruptcy and avoid a foreclosure and avoid getting the student loans garnished.
Okay, and of course, obviously, all those are major issues facing a lot of people in this country.
Absolutely.
And again, I don't have the time to get, I wish I did, Brian, to come back to you and a comment about, here we go again on our home situation and mortgages. Hey, folks, thank you very much for being on I Love My Job. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank
I thank
you.
you very, very much. I'm Doug Theaker. You've been watching I Love My Job. Once again, we're providing you with information that you need to know, to tell your relatives, your friends about Debbie Mack, about Brian Fleck. That's what it's all about. Why don't you come back next week for another show like this one on I Love My Job? We'd appreciate it. We thank you. And by the way, good night.